Welcome to this episode where we're going to be talking about storytelling, story selling. Now, I'm going to be upfront with you. I have not written any notes for this. I've not made any plan for this. This is completely freestyling and we're just going with it because I feel like a lot of people are going to need this and do need this because something that comes very easily to me, I know doesn't for a lot of people. And at the point of recording this, I've just come back today from a drumming lesson, and the first thing that I did was get on my stories and tell a story and then make it applicable and then pitch my offer at the end. And that's something that I do all of the time. So it's very easy for me to create stories that sell by doing whatever it is on my day-to-day. Because I've mastered storytelling. And then it's very easy for me to just slip into the actual pitch of my offer at the end. And I get questions a lot of, Sarah, how do I just get into selling my offer? Well, especially if it's talking it through on stories. And so, yes, you can be direct and you can be upfront. You know, if that first story was to be like, hey guys, doors are open for this offer, here's how you can buy it. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. You can absolutely do that. Go directly sell your offer on the internet. Do it. But if you want a way to lead into it so it feels like you're blending into it, then the way to do that is by telling a story. Because then it feels like you're taking your viewer or your listener, your reader on a journey. And so this doesn't have to be just on video, by the way. This doesn't have to be just on Instagram stories. You can be doing this through a carousel post as well, or on a blog post or an email. And this is the thing, storytelling is a skill that will just lend itself to everywhere. And so I feel like this episode is going to be really, really juicy. So it might be a little bit unhinged as we jump around, but we'll see how we get on. And so we've talked a little bit about like why storytelling is so important. I'm all for you pitching everywhere. You should be promoting your offer up front and not necessarily trying to hide it. Like, go for it. Shout your offer from the rooftops. But the magic of storytelling is that you can either come up with new creative ways to sell an offer. So this is really handy if you've got an offer that is your evergreen offer, or it's something that you sell either all year round or you've marketed lots of times before and you need to come up with new creative ways to get into the pitch of the offer. So it's really good for that. And it's also really good for just fresh ideas, new ways of talking about things, looking at your existing offers through new lenses, and just extracting the daily lessons out of life. You might have heard me talk about my unlimited content matrix before. And so when people say to me, Sarah, how do you never run out of content ideas? This is because I have a system. I have a system in place so that there's a thing that I have created, a system whereby I could use that matrix and just with the knowledge I've already acquired, never run out of content ideas because there is always new things that I can find within that matrix. Different ways of fitting things together to extract new content ideas constantly. So that's my system. So if all else fails, if my imagination shut off for like 6 months, I would still have enough content for at least 6 months, probably a year. But obviously, I keep myself fueled and inspired. So actually, I don't use that system that much because a lot of my content is intuitive. I told you we were going to freestyle through this episode. And so what I mean by inspired and intuitive content is where the lessons of your everyday come into play. So when you're extracting something that you do in your day and then you're turning it into a business lesson, that is you extracting the story and making it applicable to your ideal client. And then you can pitch your offer at the end. So it's just a far more interesting way. You're still taking your audience on the journey and they might even know exactly where you're going, but it just is a far more interesting, engaging, fun experience, both for you and your viewer or reader. So how do you actually tell good stories? Okay, think about the layout of popular stories, whether that's a book or a film that you used to watch. So before getting into it, you have some kind of trailer. You know, if that's in the movie, for example, you might see the trailer first before the movie comes out. So you get a little glimpse of the best bits of what's coming. It's like that teaser, and it's what makes you want to go and watch the movie, right? And the same in a book. Often you open up the front cover and there's is it the preamble or the prologue? Or is that the same thing? So that first page, anyway, the first chapter, which isn't the first chapter, it'll give you a glimpse of the most exciting chapter. You know, when everything is just building to this really dramatic scene or a key scene within the book, but it doesn't give you context. So it gives you this ridiculous teaser that hooks you in. And by that point, you're like, well, God, I've got to go find out what's happened to the main character now. So then you've got to binge the book to get to where that bit of the story came in that they gave you a glimpse of at the start. That is exactly what we're doing with your content. So the whole point of when you're structuring your story, can you there's two ways of doing it. So there's the way I just mentioned, which is to start with your hook first. The point of this is to give a teaser first of the juicy bit that's coming, and then get into the story behind it. So you want to give someone the trailer, the teaser, the juiciest bit first, and then go start at the beginning. Yeah? Because then it's so much more enticing. It's going to make people stick around because they want to know where in the story the juicy bit comes. So you give the juicy bit first in your hook, then you go back and tell the backstory, and then repeat the hook. How did you get there? And then you can lead into your offer pitch. So that's one way of telling stories, is to lead with the juicy bit first. The other way is you can set the scene. So this might be I want to take you back to a time when. And you literally take your reader or watcher on a journey. And then, why are you telling us this journey? This is the thing. This isn't just about you blarting on about whatever you've been up to. Remember, you're not an influencer here, you're a business owner. So why are you telling the viewer this story? What is in it for them? Always remember to apply the lens of WIFM, WIIFM. What is in it for me? That is what your viewer, watcher, listener is thinking. They're like, yeah, cool, love your story, love your drums, whatever. What am I getting out of this? Why are you sharing this with me? Because remember, this is your business page. You're not just sharing what you've been up to. There needs to be something in it for your viewer. It needs to be valuable for them, not just you sharing it for your own gratification. So if you applied the lens of WIFM under every piece of content that you shared, what is in it for your audience, you'd remember to extract the lessons for them. So it's not just about me sharing, oh, I went to my drumming lesson this morning. It's about me extracting the lessons of either what learning a new skill has created or helps me to do, or how that helps me to be a better coach, or the fact that I now can go play the drums on a Friday morning where I couldn't before. That's a lesson in I've now created a lifestyle that I didn't have before. Here's how I can help you to do it. You know, so I'm always applying the lens of what does my reader or watcher get from this, not just why am I sharing this. So I always think when you're telling a story, and this is how you can create a nice flow to come into your pitch. So have that opener. What is the story? Why are you telling us this story? Then come into the flow. So the actual story itself. Where are you taking us? What are you teaching us? So this will either be your setting the scene phase, or you taking us on a journey, either backwards in your own journey, or it might be a client story. So you're taking us back to the beginning of their journey. And then we carry on through the journey. So this is where the hero overcomes something or your client overcomes something. There's some sort of journey. Now remember, think about all the popular movies and tales and fables, the popular story types. There's a main character that has to overcome some sort of struggle before the happy ending comes along. There might be some sort of quest and they go off on an adventure, but then something knocks them off track. There's some sort of struggle or challenge, and then they carry on to be able to get to the happy ending and everybody lives happy ever after. Or so we hope. But that is a very popular narrative that runs throughout films, books, all sorts. It's called The Quest. There's various different variations of that, like the voyage and return, where main character goes off to make a discovery and then comes back with their findings. There's the rags to riches version of person started off in this circumstance and then was able to get to this circumstance. And we see this in content. There's, all of these can be put into content pieces. These are all just different types of stories. I'm just reeling off here. So there's rags to riches, there's the quest, there's the voyage and return. I'm trying to think of some more off the top of my head, but there's about 7 different popular story types that pretty much every film and book fall into. So yeah, there we go, some narratives for you. And you can be creating content around this, by the way. So make sure to be bringing this into your content. Like, what is your story of growth as a business owner? Was it the rags to riches? Was it you were already having success, but then you got knocked off track and then you had to recover and rebuild? I think about your own story. But just coming back and getting it right into storytelling. This is a unhinged but juicy lesson. So when it comes to actually storytelling, remember to take your reader, listener, watcher on a journey. So open up with, what are they going to get from this? Have the hook, let people see why they should stick around. So have a hook that is either interesting or engaging or says the value that they're going to get by sticking around. And then you can weave it into either the business lessons or what you've learned from that or what your clients have learned from that. Pull the business lessons out of it, and then you can weave that into your offer. And it's just a nice streamlined way of summarizing that. So, for example, just remapping my drumming sequence this morning, I first was just saying oh my God, I did this really fun thing this morning. And that's because I was super excited. And personally, this is just my way of doing things. I like to have a little bit of personal content in the morning, and then the rest of the day will be business content. That's just my way of doing things so that I can keep things, roughly speaking, about 20% personal, 80% business. Doesn't have to be that variation, but that's roughly, maybe it changes a little bit. Maybe it goes more 30-70. But I like to have a little bit of sort of either what my morning has looked like or my personal, thoughts, feelings, something in the day that can capture people's interest. And then from there, I will tailor it into what am I showing up to sell that day? What is my purpose? Or what am I launching? What makes sense to sell from what I'm about to talk about? It's never just, some things are unplanned, but most of the time there's a plan. And sometimes I'm making it up as I go along, this is intuition. I'm always selling something. So quite often I might be deciding which is the best offer to pitch at the end of a story sequence based on how the story sequence is going. But that's me. I can freestyle a lot. So for you who's looking to build something a bit more formatted, here's a few story sequences. So you could either do introduce what the story is going to be. So this might be here's how learning to play the drums has helped me to become a better business coach. Or in fact, I might change that a little bit to be learning to play the drums has helped me to become a better business coach. Here's how. And then go on to different story slides. And you can see how this would work as a carousel as well. So you've got that hook. There's the reason that then someone can click onto the next slide or the next post, because I've told you what you're going to get. I've told you that there's value coming. There's an incentive. You're going to learn something. My personal perspective and how I'm showing growth as a mentor by showing this thing. So there's that incentive for you to read on. And this is the thing. This is what you want to create with storytelling, is give people a reason to read on. Then when you're into the body of the story, give them the value. So what is the thing that you're teaching on? What is the backstory? What is the journey from before to after? Give us the actual story piece. Why do we need to know those things? Now, you don't need to go off on a whole tangent. We don't need a 10-part or 20-part story slide. As much as you might like for everyone to know every detail, just again, apply that lens of WIFM. What is in it for them? Or your audience will be saying, what is in it for me? So what do they need to know? Give us the context to that story that will mean that it lands better, that it's understood better. So give us the context. Then what is the ending? What is the summary? What is the close to this story? You've just told us these things. So where are you taking us on this journey? So bring the story to a close. What is the overarching business lesson, or what is the overall takeaway that you want your audience to have? What is the thing that you want? If they only took one sentence away from this story, what do you want that to be? Summarize that into a sentence, and then from there, you can then lead into your offer nicely. And this might look like summarizing that sentence, and so this is 5 ways that drumming has helped me to become a better business coach. This is why inside my program, I'm able to do X, Y, Z so that you can da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Or it might be a reflection of how you do your client experience differently based on the story. It might be how you've now incorporated certain things into the way that you work based on the things that were in the story. You can tailor the angle of what the pitch is based on what you've just said. If you remember I'm trying to think if it's still pinned to the top now, my most saved post ever was about angles of your offer, all the different ways of talking about your offer. So this is why you never run out of content ideas, is if you can tell endless amount of stories and then lead into endless amount of angles, there's no way you can ever run out of ways to sell your offer. How exciting! So no 2 pitches will ever be the same, because you will always be able to come up with new stories just based on you going out and living your life and then extracting the lessons and then bringing it back for your viewer. And joining Sold Out Sales Academy so that you have my unlimited contract matrix so that you can use that as your backup system for the times when inspiration isn't landing. Bada bing, bada boom. So this has been like a little bit less planned than usual, but you've got a little bit of storytelling in here. We've talked about a few different plot sequences and popular stories that are narratives that everybody knows, regardless of culture, country, generation. Those 7, and you can literally Google 7 popular stories. Is it popular plots? I think it is. But these are 7 plots that are literally weaved in between like every nursery rhyme, movie, book, like they all fit in some way a version of these 7 narratives. So if you work on the basis that everybody who has been once a child, which is everyone at some point has learned learned education through storytelling, through nursery rhymes, through reading, through books, through movies. So learning in a way that tells a story and takes us on a journey is a way that our brain responds well to. Because if you were just to show up and say, take your offer and literally talk through the facts of the offer, I mean, that's going to be boring as shit for your audience. It's going to be boring as shit for you as well. Imagine just showing up and being like, here is my offer. It does this, this, and this. It includes this, this, and this. The price is this. There's 5 worksheets. It lasts 6 weeks. You get 2 phone calls. Here is it to buy. Like, no. Thanks, but no. Whereas if you can lead with a story as to either how the offer came to be or an imagination thing that you've just had that you're going to bring into the offer that your new clients will be able to benefit from, or how your offer has evolved over time to what it's become right now, or how it started to where it is right now. There's so many different stories you can tell to lead into the pitch. And then when it comes to getting into this is why I have, and then you can go on, once you're in the actual talking about the offer bit, then it can be like, this is why I've built my program the way I have, or this is why I came up with this idea, or this is why my clients all now benefit from this, or this is how I help my clients inside this offer, and you can get into the actual details of the offer then. But when you lead with a story, because our brains have been used to learning in that pattern, because that's what we've been doing since childhood, and everybody knows these familiar patterns, we create memories and we're better able to remember things because of these patterns. Have you ever seen the memory tests where people, if they're just asked to spend like 5 minutes in a room, let's say, or even a minute in a room, and then they're tested on the objects and not given any sort of context or familiarity, and when they come out of the room, it might be, what colour was the coat on the back of the door? How many oranges were in the basket? What colour was this bottom step? And just random things. The memory recall of someone that had no particular attention to those objects and no story is really, really low. However, when there's a different test group, I'm trying to think where I've seen this now, but you'll be able to Google this. When they take a test group in and they take them around the room and give them a story, it fits into a pattern, and that massively improves people's ability to recall the things in the room. So it really, really affects memory tests. So like if people are taken around and saying, hey, you open the blue door and you put your red coat on the back of the door. You turn around. You walk up to the kitchen counter and you see the 5 oranges in the bowl. You pick up an orange and you put the skin into the green bin. And because everything follows a pattern like that as they walk people around the room, they could list out 20 to 30 different objects, and people's ability to recall those objects is way, way higher than if they just say, what colour was the thing on the back of the door, and there'd been no story or pattern, in the learning process when they were creating that memory. So this is the thing. This isn't just about tell nice stories. The reason that you're doing this is A, to make it a far more creative sell, far more interesting, but B, people are more likely to remember because we're used to learning stories. It's the way that we learn. It's the way that we build memories. It's the way that we build relationships. It's the way that our brain retains a lot of information. So the more that you can become a master storyteller, the easier it is for your audience to retain more of the information about your offer, rather than you just reading out all the facts of it and it just going straight over their head. If you've given us some context beforehand and a bit of storytelling and then leading into the facts of the offer, well, now all of it makes far more sense because there's some why, or there's some reasoning, or there's some story that you've taken us on. So this is why storytelling is such an important skill, because it can be used, in long form, short form, video, carousels, stories, everywhere. So this is a skill that you really want to get better at, and this will improve with time. Again, when I started in sales, I was not a storyteller. We learned this because we did some specific story sales training. And the reason being is that, so the event that I worked on was already the industry leading event. So of course, when you're selling, you can just go for all the best bits because it's already the best in the market. But sometimes that gets really boring, both for you and your audience. Yes, you should absolutely talk about your USPs, all the things that you are great at, all the things you are market leading at. The people need to know what you're the best at. But if you've already repeated all of those things a lot, and either it feels a little bit dry for you, or you feel like you're boring your audience with just bragging about how incredible you are, when you can bring in a bit of storytelling, it makes it far more interesting. So the way that we did this, I'm trying to recall it now, but it was, what was the name of the story? It might have just been the challenge, but it was a story of talk about success, as in build the picture of what was going well, but then talk about the fall. What was the thing? And the reason to do this is that people relate to struggle. This is the same reason why in the popular story narratives, think about like James Bond and all of the, the popular movies, it's hero goes on a journey, but then gets knocked off. It's this challenge, this struggle. And the reason why this is so popular is that this is life. Everybody has experienced this at some point. Things can be going like, well, goddamn. Life will sit you down on your ass. And so it's very relatable. People relate to struggle or challenge. Wait, let me just go back into that thought. Where were we going? Right. So we've got back on track. Do you ever get that? Do you ever feel like you can see the thought leaving your brain and you're like, no, come back. Like Kate Winslet and Jack on the, Jack, come back, Jack. That's what it's like with my thoughts sometimes. I can be like, no, I hadn't finished, come back. But we've caught it, it's come back. So talking about the challenge, and that is where you've set the initial agenda of where things were going well, set the scene, give us the good stuff. Then what went wrong? Where was the challenge? What happened that threatened to knock you off track? Where was the threat, the weakness, the challenge, the stumbling block? What did that look like? Give us some more of that picture, because that's the bit that your audience will relate to. They don't want to hear just a success story. If you're just smashing it, like, people will want to see you win, of course, some won't, but most people will want to see you win and they love to be in the presence of winners, yes. But this is why it's important to bring in what part of where was your struggle season? What did your challenge look like? What have you overcome? Because actually that is a thing that a lot more people will relate to. So bring in some of that, and then you can build the picture of success after. Because when you bring in what the challenge was, that's what's going to hook people in. And then you can say how you grew stronger because of that. So what was the threat, or what was the challenge? And then what did you have to overcome that challenge and move forward even stronger? And when you tell that in that way, the overcoming the challenge, people will be far more bought into your mission, your purpose, your values, and where you're going as a business, and bought into the brand, rather than just you saying, here's my event, it's amazing because la 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 la. Because they'll be bought into the brand story rather than just you banging on about the USPs of either you or your offer. So, I feel like this has been a jam-packed episode. So just recapping, this storytelling technique can be used, selling on stories, selling in carousels, blog posts, wherever it is that you're delivering a message. When you can do it in the sequence of a story, it just provides such a better flow to get you into your pitch rather than you just going for the hard sell. Now, of course, still go for the hard sell, especially if you've got like micro offers or pop-up offers or offers with an urgent deadline. Like, you want to be hard selling that stuff, of course. You want to make it known, like, when is the deadline? When do people need to move by? But if you just want a bit more of a creative way, or you want to take your audience with you on a journey, or you want new ways of talking about old offers, story selling is the way to go. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. I've absolutely loved creating it. I'm going to do more freestyle stuff more often. I'm going to drop it straight away. And then, reach out on Insta if you enjoyed this episode, this mini training in story sales. This is something that I've been sat on for the longest time. I've often thought about doing like a mini course, mini mind, something around story selling, storytelling. So we'll see. Maybe this will come in the future. So if you liked this, reach out on Insta. Tell me if you love this episode, Sarah Buckland Coaching. And if you're listening to this in the next week after dropping it, hop yourself inside a Sold Out Sales Academy, because storytelling is just one of the elements that I help you to create within your own business so that you can be just making sales so much easier. When you can learn how to tell good stories that your audience love, it's so much easier for them to come through and buy because they're bought into your brand story. So, but if you're listening to this after the 20th of December, my honey, you have already missed the boat on that one. You'll have to sign up for the waitlist for the next one. All right, Queens, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I shall speak to you very soon. Love you.